Good afternoon or good day, everybody. Welcome to today's class. And in today's class, we are going to talk about object-oriented programming with JavaScript, right? Object-oriented programming, class and object-oriented programming with JavaScript. So, what's object-oriented programming in the first place to start with? So, object-oriented programming is a style of programming in which you use classes and objects to represent um, your code. So instead of just having global variables and functions, you are wrapping whatever you're writing in a class, and then you're creating an instance of that class, right? And then that instance of the class is called an object, okay? And then um, your a class contains basically two things. It contains properties and methods. So this is one thing. Some will be asking, why is it that you call some things functions, you call some methods? Now, the main difference between functions and methods and then variables and then properties is that it is based on where you use it. If you just write a normal variable, a is equals to 5, that's like a normal variable, right? It's because it's not in a class. It's not written inside a class. If you write a function, just write by writing the function, it's just a function. But when you have a class and then you write a function inside that class, you're actually declaring you won't call that a function, rather you call it a method, right? If you write a function inside a class, it's usually called a method. Okay. Then the variables that you declare inside your class is called properties of that class. Okay. Then yeah, so that's it. Then once you create that class, so a class, right, is just simply a blueprint of uh of your program, right? A blueprint is just like a plan for your piece of code. So let me relate that to something in real life. You know, before you build a building, before you build a house or a duplex, whatever I want to build, there's always a plan, right? That an architect draws out. Once the architect draws that plan, um, the um, you are also going to look at that plan. You're going to see the adjustments that will be made on that plan and every other thing. Then once you accept the plan, you now move that plan to the builders, right? The engineers and the builders that are going to build that building or make that building come to life. The same thing happens when you are even in terms of software development, the UI UX guys are more like the architects. So they do the wireframing, they build the interface to show you how it's going to look. Then after building that interface, you as the owner, you look at it, you make adjustments. Once that is done, it is then passed down to the developers, right, or the development team, and then they continue. So a class is like that blueprint where you write your function, you edit it, you do whatever you want to do with that function. Then later on, you can instantiate that function. So an object is an instance. Sorry. You write your class, and then when you're done, you instantiate that class, right? So writing the class, you at that point, you are the architect for that class. Okay. And then once you're done writing the class, you can then instantiate that class. So an object is an instance of a class. So it's just like saying, it's just like having a factory, and then that factory can produce something for you. So the product of that factory is an object that's produced from that factory. So the same way, an object that you instantiate is a property. You get, it's a property of that class that is being instantiated from. And all these things I'm saying, we are going to see them in practical. Yeah, okay. So what we've been doing is just functional programming. Functional programming. So programming function. So what we've been doing before is just functional programming. Someone asked, so does what we have been doing so far have a name? Okay, yeah, so it's functional programming we've been doing, right? Um, so now what you want to do now is class-based or programming, and then JavaScript allows both functional and class-based programming, right? And then there are some programming languages that are strict on using class-based programming, like um, C++, Java, um, which other programming language? C++ and Java are the ones I can remember now. I think Go is part of them, but I'm not really sure. I think Go is part of them, but I know of C++ and Java that they require that you write everything that has to do with the program as using the object-oriented programming method. Okay, so what makes functional different from object-oriented is just that um object-oriented is usually written in a class, right? In fact, it's always written in a class. If you're doing object-oriented programming, you're always going to write your um your code in a class, and then you can instantiate that code. You can you can make a class inherit from another class. Um you can create an object of a class repeatedly. Like you can create an object from a class 20 times, right? As far as you can instantiate, as far as that class is not an abstract class, you can keep instantiating more you're making more instances of objects from that class. So that's what makes it different. So from functional programming, if you're doing functional programming, the highest you can do is exporting the function, right, from your file, and then importing that function to another file to use. Okay, you can also export classes too. You can export classes, you can export instances of a class, but there are there are other things too that's okay. Languages that only use objects don't use functions. Yeah, so some languages accept both. Some languages accept both object-oriented programming and functional programming, while some are strict on just object-oriented programming. Like I think when we talk about, I think C that just accepts only functional programming. It doesn't accept object-oriented. You just have everything you have to write using the functional way of, or the functional style of writing a program. But then C++ came with the object-oriented paradigm, and then people started adopting that to write. So it depends on the language. You need to find out what your language, wants, right? And most modern programming languages um, accept both. So if you want to use, for example, JavaScript, Python, right? If you want to use functional programming for Python, you can. If you want to use the class and object-oriented based way of writing your program, you can also do that, whichever one. So people that come from Java that want to write JavaScript or Python, most times will still want to follow that object-oriented pattern of writing their program. Okay, so both actually work if you know exactly what you're doing. Okay, so I hope there's not a question on that. So let's do something. Let's do something right away. Uh, let me let me go back to let me go back to VS Code, and then you can start doing something there. Mind you, I've not forgotten that we are supposed to work on I've not forgotten that we are supposed to, or we are going to work on something, right? I've not forgotten that. So we'll still do it. Just give me some time. I'll reshare my screen in a minute. Okay, so let me share my screen now. While VS Code is still coming up, let me just share it. Okay, cool. So I'm sharing again. Okay, so Martins, is there something you want me to repeat? Is there something you want me to repeat? So, all right, so let's continue. Okay. So the tax I gave, yeah, I know. Um okay, please explain OOP again. Okay, one last time. All right, no problem. So someone says I should explain object-oriented programming. And I guess I'm going to use something. I'm going to use something you guys can relate to easily, right? So um when you're writing, well, let me use the okay, let me use the shopping list for example. Before you go before you go shopping, right? Normally you used to write your shopping list, right? You write it down. Number one, you buy this one. Number two, you buy that. Number three, you buy this. Number four, you just list out everything you want to buy. Then you write the cost, the total cost it will take to get all the things in your list, right? And then you go to market and you start actually buying those things, right? But when you were writing the list, you weren't buying those things. You were trying to create a plan on the total amount it will take you to buy everything, the total amount it will, or the amount it will take you to buy each of the things you want to buy, and the total amount it will take for you to buy everything, right? You actually did that. Now, that shopping list can be um, taken to be your your class, right? It is because it's actually a plan, right? That shopping list is like a class at that point. Now, when you go to the market, you now buy the actual goods and you buy it in respect to what you write or what you wrote on the shopping list, which is like your master plan piece of paper, right? So that shopping list can be thought of as a class. And then you actually going to buy those things is like trying to create the instance of that class that you or of the shopping list you wrote. So if someone looks at the shopping list, the person looks at what you bought, the person says that okay, you all while you're buying the things now, you will always be referencing the shopping list to buy what you want to buy. So at that point, the shopping list is acting as a class to you. While you buying the what is on the shopping list is you creating an instance of that shopping list. So everything you buy is like properties that are inside the instance of the list that you wrote. Does it make sense? And of course, you can use one list twice. Like you can go to market, buy something, and then come back, and then the next time you want to go to market, you pick up exactly that same list and buy exactly the same thing that you bought in that market, provided the list did not tear or the list didn't go missing. So that's how classes are. You write your class and then you can create instances of that class. Now, the instance of the class you create is called an object. So once you create if you create two instances of a class, you're creating two objects from that class. Does it make sense? Does it make sense to you guys? Um, Moko, does that make sense to you? Is there anybody that is still confused? Okay, so I'm glad it makes sense to you guys. Um, so when you're talking of instance, um, you're talking of creating an object from your class, right? Creating an object. Should we refer to it as a copy? I don't think you refer to it as a copy. You refer to it like the fulfillment of the plan that you wrote in your class. Just think of your object like a fulfillment of the plan you wrote in your class. It's just like God having plans for you and fulfilling it, right? The plans are the class. The fulfillment is the object that is created for that plan. Uh-uh. So why is everybody okay? Task. All right. Yeah. So let's continue. So how do you write a class in JavaScript? You write it starting with the word class, then the name of the class. So whatever you want to name it, my bank, right? And then you put in those brackets there. So this is how you write the class. You started with the class name, or you started with the keyword class. Then you write the name here, right, which is my bank. Then after that, everything that you write inside this block of code now becomes the objects and the properties that are for that particular class. Does it make sense to you guys? Does it make sense? So, okay. Two people are saying no, it doesn't make sense. Martins and Matilda. So, all right. So, what I'm saying is, this is how to start writing your class. You start writing your class by using the class statement first, then the name of the class. Of course, the name of the class is usually in Pascal case, right? It's usually in Pascal case. You could name it whenever. Well, normally it's usually um Pascal case. I remember I said that Pascal case is just it's usually written with everything, each word or the first letter of each word in capital. So maybe something like if you want to say my bank, my is a word on its own, then bank is also a word on its own. So my bank that way. So instead of using camel case, you want to use Pascal case for that. And then the next thing is the brackets open and brackets close. Does that make sense to you guys? Ooh, all right. So once you write it that way, you can start writing your functions, or sorry, your classes. and every other thing that you want to write. Okay. So it would say um we we need to use const here. So we say balance is equals to 0. What's the so I remember I said, yeah, this is how to declare a class. Yeah, this is how to declare a class. You say balance 0, you can say customer name. So what I'm doing here is oh, let me just say the bank, and then let me just create a balance of 0 and say I write a function. Uh, so the function would be um oh, no, sorry. Was this was a certain parameter, say check balance. I just say check balance, and this should return this dot balance. Finish. Okay. So this is a simple class that just has the property balance. Please don't mind me. You can't start this with let or const. It is going to underline it for you. And you can't start a function name with function like this. It will underline it for you. You have to write it this way: balance and check balance, right? So now we've written this class, and this is like so that's how you write classes in JavaScript. Um, the reason for that, the reason for that, the reason for that. Mm, so I can't really tell, but just know that that's the style. That, for example, we say let is equals to let balance equals to 0, for example. I don't know why let is being used there, although I know that it's going to tell you that this function or this variable can be redeclared, right? So, but here the reason why they removed const or let or removing the use of function here, right? I can't really tell. Okay. Uh, so Sunny Johnson has seen what you said. So, I'll be a little bit more audible. Okay. I hope you can hear me clearly now. Uh, now we want to create this or my let me call it my bank account. My bank account. Okay, so this here is referring to the instance of the instance of this class when it's being created. That's why I'm using this. Okay, so this is just saying that instance you created. Okay, does it make sense? Okay, so let me create an instance first so that you guys will understand what I mean. I'll say instance one equals to new my bank account and instance two equals new my bank account. Although I know these two are still going to give you the same result, right? These two are going to give you the same exactly the same results when you call them. But okay, Matilda, you said you're getting confused. Okay. Okay. Yes, the result is 0 for both. But these are actually two different instances. Like this instance of my bank account is totally different from this particular instance. These are like two different instances, and we'll see how they work differently. So you can actually still access this. You can access this balance. You can access this balance directly if you don't want to use this dot balance. If you don't want to return it in a function, you can actually access this directly. Matilda, if that is what you're asking, you can just do instance one dot balance, and it's going to give you this balance, right? But then if they can access this directly, then they can actually change it directly, which is okay. Wow. Yeah, I mean on this dot balance. Okay, why are we okay? You're referring to why we are returning this. And what one the user to be able to call now this is a method, while this is a property, right? So you're saying let me explain the this keyword. Now the this keyword is used to refer to the instance of the balance or the instance of that class that you've created. So this when you for this instance one will create the instance of this object and assign it to instance one. Then if you say instance one dot check balance, it will call this function for this first instance to check the balance. Instance two would call this instance, right, to check the balance. Okay, so you're asking why didn't I just write balance like this? See, even when I'm trying to write it normally, it's just automatically as the this. Let me write it without this. It should be underlined also. Okay, it doesn't underline. It's not going to return anything. No, but you can't just call it dot balance like or just balance because this balance is a method is a property that belongs to that instance of the class. So I don't know why is it why is it that difficult? Is it difficult for you guys to follow up? So let's just go on. These things might not make sense to you now. It might not really make sense to you now as I'm trying to explain it, but it is going to make sense to you as we keep writing it. You can't write dot balance straight up. It's not allowed in when you're especially when you're using a class. You can't just write dot balance. This you're writing is trying to tell them is trying to you're trying to tell um the compiler that it is that particular instance. Okay, let me just do it down here, sure. If I said instance, if I said console dot log, console dot log instance one dot, you see balance and you see check balance, right? You can't, so let me add this again. So instance one dot check balance, let me call check balance, and then we'll also do console dot log instance two dot check balance. Okay, and this is a function, so we need to also put those brackets there. So I've written that function, and then I want to open my terminal, new terminal, so we can start executing the code. Okay, so um, Of course, both of them would show the same result. So cd, there's node script.js. Both of them shows the same result actually, right? So let me do something. Let me modify their balances and then show you what's going to happen. So I could say instance one dot balance should be equals to 20,000, and then instance two dot balance should be equals to 50,000. And then we're going to log out the instance there. So now, do you notice what happened? Let's come back here. Remember that we created two instances, instance one, instance two, right, of my bank account. And then instance one has its own balance independently that doesn't affect instance two. Instance two's balance doesn't affect instance one, or anything that has to do with the object that was created from instance one or created and assigned to instance one doesn't have any business to do with the object that was created in instance two. Okay, so I now did after instantiating these two or creating two instances of my bank account. The next thing I did was I tried checking the balance of the instance one and the balance of okay, and the balance of instance two. Okay, so checking the balance of instance one, we had 0, and then checking the balance of instance two, we also have 0, right? Then what I did here was for the balance of instance one, I changed it to be 20,000. And then the balance of instance two, I changed this to become 50,000, right? And then after doing that, I checked the balance of instance one, and I also checked the balance of instance two. So now you see that instance one has the balance of 20,000, and then instance two has the balance of 50,000. Does it make sense to you guys now? Does it make sense? If you're following, just say I'm following. Yeah, yes. So balance is a property of my bank account objects, right? And then, so if you call it just like that, it will be undefined. Yeah, so if I just said my balance like this, right? And I execute this code, you see that it is undefined for the two instances I created. Okay, okay. So I'm glad you guys are following actually, right? So see for the balance and check balance, you see, we've been able to create two instances of this class, right? And we've been able to uh, modify to check the balances of both instances. We've been able to modify the balances of both of the instances, and then we checked it again. We checked the balance of both instances, right? And then you see, we're able to do all that. So let's try to write a full bank app and then see what we can do. So by the way, allowing people to modify their balances directly is not ideal. So what we might want to do is we might want to hide this balance so that people from outside like so that people can do this directly. People can just edit the balance of their bank account. Okay, so if you want to do that, you add a hash or a pound symbol before the balance, and once you do that, now this is going to make the balance property private to be only used inside the instance of the class that you're calling it. So balance name is going to be private. So private in the sense that if you try doing this dot balance, it's not going to allow you to do such a thing. So and then since we've made the balance private, we are going to update it here too and say hash balance. Now let me come back and run this code. So even if you were able to check balance because this check balance allows you to return balance, right? If you try to do something like this, okay, let me take this back to how it was before. And this was how it was before now, right? So now, if you do something like, if you wanted to check the balance, you could just write, instead of writing check balance, you could just write this dot balance. And then here you write this dot balance. You can also do the same thing here after you've modified that balance property. So just say balance here, and then you say balance here. Then you clear your terminal and run it again. So you see, it still gives you exactly the same thing because the property is public. It's public. This balance property is public, right? So it can be accessed by anybody, right? But that's not what you want to do. That's not what you want to happen. You want it that only this function should be able to return the balance, right? So you make this a private property. So making a private property means you need to add the pound or hash symbol before it, and then also you add the hash here, right? If you do that, and then you come back and try to run this, okay? So what does it do? Okay, first it gave you what undefined, undefined. Okay. Mm, wait, so this is balance. This is the balance 2005, 2005. Okay, so we are still able to update the balance one. Okay, so um now this is supposed to be private. Hmm. Okay, so but so I guess this is supposed to mark it as being private, not really actually making it private. Plus, so let me check if this was saved actually. It's saved. Oh. Mm, okay, so what happens? What happens? What happens? We can actually still modify the balance. Okay, so that's strange. So, but on the normal, this is supposed to this is supposed to mark the balance as a private property and also hide it from being modified directly. Like this, if we wrote this dot balance, is supposed to hide it from being modified directly. So, okay, Yeah, so what I did here is I made balance to, or I tried to update the balance directly. I tried to update balance directly and it actually updated. It's not to update the balances directly. And I'm also still able to access balance directly, which is not supposed to be so. My bank instance of. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to find out what why that didn't hide. This is supposed to hide it. But then in a way you should be able to make instance or properties, right? Private. Okay. So what if you also hash the this dot balance? I've done it too now. See it here. This dot balance is actually hashed here. It's also hashed. So let's continue though. I'm going to come back to revisit that. So what are the methods we should be able to add uh in our contract? Sorry, in our class. Sorry, not contract, in our class. We should be able to add a function to deposit, a function to withdraw. Um, we should also be able to add in. Now, there's this thing. What is it being called? It's called a constructor. Okay. So before we go on, I need to talk about the constructor. A constructor. So what is a constructor? So now a constructor is a special kind of property that is written into a a class that automatically executes as soon as that class is being created. Did you guys get that? Did you guys get that? So a constructor is a function, right? Or a proper a method that is written into a class that automatically executes as that class um, is instantiated. So let's take an example. Now, sorry. So let's take for example, we want to create bank accounts, right? For let's say two people, and you want them to be able to supply their name, their account type, and maybe their initial deposit, right? You can do that using the constructor because as you're creating a bank account in a normal bank, for example, your bank account will contain your name, right? To contain the type of account. If you're paying a balance, that bank account when it is being created will contain that balance that you're creating. So let's take name, maybe occupation, maybe occupation. I don't know. Let's just see. So we write the constructor like this, constructor like that. The constructor will take in the customer name and the occupation, the initial balance, and the account type, right? It takes in those four parameters, and then we come in here and say, um, so so you're saying I should repeat what the constructor is, Johnson. So the constructor is just simply is a special kind of function that executes as soon as an instance of a class is being created. So as that instance is being, as that instance of the class, like as soon as you call this my bank account, as this function, as this object, because what this is where you're instantiating your objects. When you write in this new keyword, you're just saying create a new instance of this class, right? Or create an object, a new object from the instance from this class. That's create a new object instance from this class, my bank account. Create that new instance. Okay, that's just simply what we've written here. Once this code executes, right, the constructor will also be executed automatically. So let's see how we can do that. So we can see we can have something like this. Customer name. So what I'm doing here is I'm just declaring the default variables or default properties that are going to be there. Okay, and they are not actually necessary. I can do without them actually. Then I've seen okay, we already have balance here. And I also want this ones to be private. So then initial balance constant. Is there any need for me to make this? Let me just make all of them public for now. So when you're calling an instance of this class and then you want to instantiate the the constructor is being called, anything you write inside here will be called in the while that instance is created. For example, let me just say console.log the constructor code. Just write that. Let me allow that to be public. I'll comment on this, and then I'll also comment on all these parts too. You notice that I'm not calling any of this function. I just created these two instances. And each time the instance is being created, what I wrote in my constructor is executed. So when I said that, as soon as you try to create an object from your constructor, which is using the new keyword, right, to create an object, the constructor is automatically executed at that point. Is automatically, even if this check balance was there, as far as I did not call check balance, it will not execute. Like the check balance will not execute, but the constructor is always executed each time you create an object from it. Does it make sense to you guys? Does it make sense? Okay, nice. So what I want to do is as soon as the contract is being called, um, sorry, I'm using contract because I'm used to writing solidity. Right? I'm sorry. I'm using contract instead of class. So as soon as the class is called, okay. So Matilda, what's the importance of a constructor? The reason for a constructor mainly is that there are things that you want to happen as soon as you call an instance of your class. So if you want that thing to happen as soon as you call the instance of your class, then you write it in a constructor. For example, once my bank account is being created, I want to give it a customer name, an occupation, an initial balance, and an account type. Once that instance of that bank account is trying to be or wants to be created. Okay, so on creating that instance will also call the constructor function. Okay, automatically. So there's no place that you see me say something like instance of one dot constructor. No, I will never say that. Right? So that's one of the reasons. So how do we assign customer name? The customer name we give to the constructor to this customer name here. What we say is this dot customer name is equals to the customer name. So what we are saying is the instance of this my bank account customer name should be equal to the customer name that was given in the constructor, right? So I'll show you where this customer name is coming from. So for example, this constructor, if we want to pass customer name when we are calling it, so we write it here. You can say the first customer name is manual, right? We can pass another constructor here. We can say another the value of the customer for the second, and we can say the customer name should be Matilda. Okay, so I'm saying that the customer name, this customer name, which is Emmanuel at this point, should be the customer name for the instance that is being created. So I then say this dot occupation should be equals to this occupation here now. Now balance this dot balance this balance. Anytime you're using this keyword, you're referring to the property of that contract. So this dot balance is equals to initial balance, and then this dot account type is equals to account type. Once you do that, right? What you've simply said is once this contract is being instantiated here, for example, Emmanuel will be the customer's name, occupation. What else do we pass there? Initial balance. Initial balance 20,000. Baller but his account balance is 20,000. Then account type will be savings, will be in capital letter. So Matilda, occupation, business woman. 4,000. So I'm just saying 4,000. Maybe she's using a current account, right? Then what if we want to check, apart from checking the balance, what if we want to return the profile of the user at that instance? So we can say something like maybe profile, and then the profile can be return um, um, hello, this dot name, then in brackets, we put your occupation, your balance is this dot balance, and you are creating a this dot account type account. So let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let me delete this too. So I've created instance one and instance two. So if I say instance one dot profile and instance two dot profile, and I call this facing Hello, Emmanuel. That's the Ababola. Your balance is 20,000 and you are operating a savings account. While Matilda's own is Hello Matilda, businesswoman, your balance is 4,000 and you're operating a current account. Okay? Yeah, so you can use the constructor to pass values to the object while when you're creating it the first time, when you're creating it. So you don't, you know, if you don't want to do it like this, you want to maybe create the object. Now, let us try to do the same thing without the constructor, for example. If you want to do it without the constructor, you might write another function that will do this. Maybe you would then say this dot set user. I don't know if you guys will understand. Maybe let's do it, sure. So if if we didn't have the constructor function and you wanted to do the same thing I just did, what you might want to do is you might write this. Maybe you want to call it set user. Set user. But of course, you know that once you if you write this, if you write your class this way, you need to first call it. After calling it, you will now set the user. So maybe you will do something like this. Before you call profile, you will need to do something like instance one dot set user. And then you pass in that, then you do instance two dot set user. Then before you can then pass in the second instance. So, but which one is easier to do? Which one is easier to do? Declaring a constructor that automatically sets this thing as these properties as the instance are being created, or writing a separate function to create the user after you've created the instance of the account. The constructor is actually the simplest. Yeah, the constructor is easier to do because it runs automatically. So instead of doing any set user, you just use a constructor instead. You use a constructor. Right. Then apart from checking your balance and then checking your profile, we should create some other things to do. For example, you should be able to create a deposit and a withdraw. Oh, sorry, sorry, I get used to writing function too much. And this is where it gets more interesting. So um, what do we pass there? I want to deposit amount, yeah, an amount. I want to also withdraw an amount. So an amount. Of course, when you're depositing, what do you want to do? You want to increase the balance, right? You want to increase the balance. Hmm. So you want to say this dot balance, which is the balance for the object, right? That was instantiated. That's that particular object. This dot balance should be equals to this dot balance plus the amount. So what you're saying is that the new balance should be equals to the old balance plus the amount that has been uh, passed to the deposit function. Does it make sense? Now, instead of writing this dot balance is equals to this dot balance plus amount, there's a shorter way to write this same statement. You can write it as this. You can say balance, this dot balance should be plus equals to the amount. So this is the same thing as writing this balance should be equals to this balance plus amount. It's exactly the same thing. Are you guys following? Is there anybody that is lost? Is there anybody that is lost? Okay, then if you want to withdraw, you want to check if this dot balance minus the amount is going to be less than 0. So if the amount you're trying to remove from your balance is going to be less than 0, which means you want to owe the bank. So what we want to do is we want to um, return, let me throw a new error. What would the new error be? Insufficient. No, Johnson, you can't write it that way. You can't write this dot balance equals to balance plus amount. It's no. What you're doing there is you're concatenating strings. So it will just add balance amount and that will cause a bug in your code. That bug is going to change this dot balance from being 0 to being balance amount. Insufficient balance. So you want to throw that. So, but if everything goes well, this dot balance should be minus equals to this dot balance. Oh, sorry. This is the same thing as writing this dot balance should be equals to this dot balance minus amount. Exactly the same thing. And each time we do this, we should return something that should tell us what we did was successful. Successful deposit. Return successful withdrawal. Successful withdrawal. Okay, so let's see how we can play around with that now. Let me show you one other thing. Now, I want us to actually play well with this class we've written. I want us to play very well with it. Then let's do something like node. Let's just write now. Node can execute your JavaScript file, and then node also comes with what is called the interactive shell or the repo environment, REPL. Repo environments. Repo there means node executes print and loop. Repo REPL read executes print and then loop. So if you want to really play around with this account, let's copy everything. Let's copy everything. Control C. We'll come here. We will play today very well. Clear it. Type node and press enter. Now this takes you into it's Node's interactive shell, or what you call the REPL environment. Anyone, paste your code to your full chest, paste it. Now, what you've pasted is being executed. Everything you've pasted has been executed. It has been the instance or the class has been recorded, the instance have been created, like for each instance, instance one and instance two. Now let's play. Let me say instance one dot um check balance. We receive 2,000, I'll be 20,000. If we write instance two dot check balance, you see 4,000. Matilda has money more than this now. So Matilda, remember that instance two is Matilda, while instance one is Emmanuel, right? If we want to confirm, let's do instance two dot profile. We see that that's actually Matilda, right? We can do instance two dot deposit. How much does Matilda want to deposit? Matilda wants to deposit. Matilda wants to deposit 12,000 because she has money like that. Successful deposit. Let's check Matilda's balance. So we say instance two dot check balance. We see that our balance is now 16,000, right? Now let's check instance one balance. Oh, sorry, dot check balance. So when we say instance one dot check balance, we see 2,000. Okay, so let's try. Let's try to remove everything from instance one plus. He has just 20,000. Let's try to remove um let's try to remove 50,000 from his balance and see what's happening. So we see instance one dot withdraw. Instance one dot withdraw wants to withdraw 50,000. You see that there's an error there. Insufficient balance at this repo 36 30 19. Remember what I talked about repo, this environment. Then let's withdraw an amount that he has. Let's say instance one dot withdraw. Oh, instance one dot withdraw, and then we put in 5,000. Remember that he has 20,000. So if we remove 5,000, we should be left with 15,000, right? So if we do that, you see, withdrawal successful. If we say the instance one dot check balance, we would now see that he has 15,000 instead of 20,000 because we just withdrew 5,000. Okay. So do you guys follow? Do you guys follow? Or is it getting more confused for you guys? Do you guys follow? If you're following, say I'm following, sir, or I'm following. Just say you're following. Okay. Yeah. So So that's the that's basic for what's it being called? Okay, so Nwoko or Chuku Nwoko, just try and if network is not stable at your end, try and rewatch the video so that you can see what I did there, so that I can see exactly what I did and also follow. So yeah, we've been able to play around with this. We've been able to play around with it. You can do the same, maybe with you can try to create an e-commerce class. In fact, I think we should do that also. Let's see how that works. So we created this. Let's try to create an e-commerce class that has properties and objects. I know that one might be a little bit difficult. Let's come down here. So I'll say class. What should I call that class? I could call it Vimeo. um, is that what I should call it? Um, we'll say Vimeo, and this particular class. So for now, there's no way to transfer from instance one to instance two. There's no way for it to actually transfer. That's because um instance one is totally independent of instance two. The only way you can actually do the transfer is if you create maybe a class that is kind of like a bridge that will withdraw from instance one and also deposit on instance two. So, but that class is not one very difficult class. It's just simply, which means that class that will act as a bridge will have the balance for instance one and instance two together. It will know the balance of any class that is being created, and then you can update the balance there. So let's try to write an e-commerce this thing. Let's try and write an e-commerce um what's it been called? What's it been called? An e-commerce project. Simple e-commerce using class, right? Mind you, this is going to interest you. If you know how to write classes very well, you can use that knowledge to write smart contracts, especially the ones written with Solidity. This is just a plus. I'm just saying it here. If you know how to write smart classes very well with JavaScript, you can use it to write your Web3 Solidity code. Okay, so let's continue. First, we have a constructor. The constructor will be storing money address. Yeah, I'll do the same thing here. So this dot sorry, stunning. I just want them to be undefined, we don't define them. So this stunning should be equal to the stunning class here. This address here, this dot address should be the address you pass here. Okay. Then if you have something like this, maybe you should have it is users, anybody can be a user, right? So I could do something like register, say name, email, and full name, or name, full name and email. So what I'm going to do is I want to check if so what okay, so let me try to explain while I'm doing. When you are trying to register, we are going to check if the full name or if the email already exists in users. If it exists, you can register. That is just simple what I want to do. Oh, sorry, this is supposed to be outside the constructor. Once you do that, you can see register, let's say, yes, we're going to find, so that's when you write in for loop. See, let's n equals to 0, n should be less than users dot length. This is the users dot length. I plus plus. Let's see if users, this dot users I dot email, if the email return. Now, what I've written here is like a filter. What I'm doing here is I'm saying when you supply your full name and email and you call the register, right? You call the register and supply your full name and email. What I'm trying to say is that we should look through the list of users. We should check each object in that list of users to see if there's an email with the one that you're trying to register with. So if there are like 5 users inside this users array, if there are like 5 users inside here, it will, when this loop will run 5 times, it will pick the first user. After picking the first user, it will check if the email of that first user is this email, right? If it's not that, it will go to the second user, check. If it finds out user there is a user in the array of users that is using the email that you're trying to register, maybe you should, instead of return, you should throw a new error. And the new error should say but if this doesn't happen for all the users down that, what should you do? Someone should tell me what should happen. If we've gone through the list of all the users and there's no user or the email, there's no user that has used the email I'm trying to register with, what should happen? Anybody? Okay, you should register the user. Okay, we should allow, we should create the user. Cool. So how do we create the user? And we say this dot user dot push. We push the user with his full name. So full name and email. Oh, okay. Sorry. So I was saying that we'll have a product array. We have a product array. You want to add products. You want to do that. Uh, this dot product dot push. Then we say product name and cost. Then you can say return product name look successful. Then we should be able to remove products also. So I just let's say um product. Hmm. I could say every product should have an ID, and every user too should even have an ID also. Uh, so ID should be new dates. Okay, should be date dot now. So date dot now is used to get the time since 1st of January of 1970. That's the milliseconds from 1970 to now. And of course, milliseconds change, right? So this is I could use that for an ID. I could also use that for the user ID, right? Also, so if you're removing a product, we will accept the ID of that product. We would want to write a loop to remove to search and remove for that product and remove that product. So we can do this. You can see products. Well, let's say updated products is equals to an array. Then we can say something like for let I equals to 0, I should be less than products dot length I plus plus. So this is looping through the list of products. Then we want to check if if the product, if this dot product at I, which is the product at that particular iteration dot ID is not is not equals to um if it's not equals to the ID, which is this ID we want to delete, then we want to say updated products should be equals to dot push should be this dot products at I. See, so don't worry. For what I'm writing now, I'm going to explain it. I'm going to explain it. I'm sure that a whole lot of you guys are lost at this point. I'm very sure of that. So you have started from that push where I had lastly before now. So you weren't following from where you started. Okay, so okay. So this is what I will do. I'm writing the code currently. I'm going to explain it after writing it so you guys will understand. So let me just finish writing the code now. Once I finish writing it, I'm going to explain it to you. Is that okay? So we'll do this and then we'll then say that, I hope that's okay with you guys. This is the product should be equals to the updated products. Updated products. Updated products. Then displaying the products. So view products. View products should just return all products. So return list of products and then view products. So okay, once I've updated this product, I'll say return products deleted successful. So view products and then I'll say view products, which is view all products, which will accept an ID, and then we'll have a for loop. So let's I equals to 0. I should be less than this dot products dot limits I plus plus. Sorry, and then here you want to say when you want to view one product, you would say if this dot products at I dot ID is equals to this ID, then return that product, return this dot products at that time. But if we didn't find any product, we want to throw a new error. We want to say product not found. Okay, so now comes the explanation time. So now look, we are still in this environment. What if we wanted to like exit from this environment, like leave this REPL environment? What do? We write dot exit and press enter. That will take us away out from this environment. Then we can clear our screen one more time. Let me hide this. So now let's go over this one by one. I've written a lot of code in a short time. First, we have a contract called Vumia, VUMIA. And I don't want to use the one that is popular. So Vumia, right? Vumia will have a store name, we have a we have an address, we have a list of users, right? We have products. I'm even thinking of adding cards, but I will not add cards now. So the first thing is we want to do is when you're instantiating and when you're building the building for Vimia, we want to give the building a store name and an address, right? Okay, so that's what we are trying to do in this constructor. So we say the instance of Vimia, that store name will be the store name, the address will be this address we're passing here. Then the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to register users. So we say when we call register, we should pass, now every user should pass full name, email, and then user type. Those three are very important. Full name, email, user type. Then what we want to do now is we don't just register the user, right? What we want to do first is we want to now look through the list of users. So this, what I've written so far is I is equals to 0, right? Is where we are starting. We want to stop at the length of the user, where the length of the user is less than this I. So each time I increases, we want to check is still less than the length of the user. If I is less than, sorry, yeah, is I less than the length of these users? If I is still less than the length of these users, then we should continue the loop. Once I becomes greater than the or sorry, when I becomes equal to the length of these users, right? Then we want to stop the code. Then each time when the iteration runs, we want to increase this by one. Remember that we did something like for when I say something like start, stop, step. That's something that's simple to help you understand how for loops work. This is where you want to start. This step is what should be false for that iteration to stop. And then this step is how many moves or steps do you want to take to get from the start to the stop. So I'm saying look through the list of users to the end, from the beginning of the list of users right to the end of the list of the users. We are trying to look through that. Then once we do that, we are trying to say we are checking for each user. For each user, is the email of that user the email that was passed to register? If that email was the same email passed to register, then uh, just tell them that the email is already used. But if we go through the full list of users and then this isn't true, this like we don't find any email from the list of users that is equal to the email we are trying to use to register, then it means that that email doesn't already exist on our array. So we then try to register that user. After registering the user, we say that user is registered successfully. Okay? Is it confusing? Is anybody is anybody that is not getting it? Anybody? Is anybody? Okay, so then the next thing is we want to see how we can add products. This one is simple. Just push. Let's just add to the list of products, right? Uh, so what we want to do is I want to add to the beginning of the list of products. So I'll change this to on shift because I want it that when you add new products, you should add it at the top of the array, not at the bottom. So this one is simple. I'm just saying this dot on shift, then of course every product has an ID, a product name, and a cost. Then we say the product name added successfully. Then removing products, right? We call remove products, and then if we want to remove products, remember that each product will have a unique identifier. So we say we pass the ID and then we say so this updated product will only contain products in which the ID is not this ID we passed here. Okay. So what we are now saying here, what we are doing is we are still looping again from the beginning of the array of products to the end of the array, products array. That's we are looping through all the products in the array. And for each product, we are checking, is it true that the ID of, for example, when I becomes 0, which means we are picking the first product, we are not checking, is the ID of the product at index 0 this ID? If it is not, if it is true that the IDs are not the same, that is the ID of the first product in the array is not the same as the ID we are trying to delete, then add that product to the updated product. But if that ID is the same as the products we want to delete, don't add it to this new or to this updated products array. Do you understand? So once we do that now, it is going to be picking products and it will check, is the product ID the same as the ID we want to delete? If it's not the same, add it to this new product. It will keep adding. Then when you reach the product that the ID equals to this ID, it will not add it to this updated products because that's the products we want to delete. So it will add others. So when we finish adding others, what I'm doing now is this dot products, which is the products array, should now be equals to this updated array that doesn't contain the products that we've deleted. Then we'll now say product deleted successfully. Do you guys follow? Do you guys follow? Even if you don't understand the code line by line, but you understand the logic at which at what I'm or the logic I'm trying to use to implement this, right? Who is not following? If you're not following, you need to rewatch the video. You need to rewatch it. Okay. So now, this one is simple. View products just returns a list of products. View one product. So view one product will look through the list of products to find the particular product that you're looking for. So for each product, we are checking if the ID of the product is equals to the ID you're looking for. If it is equals to, if the product is equals to the ID that you're looking for, return that product. But then if we go through the full array and we don't find any products that has the ID that we passed here, that the IDs don't match, what we are going to return now is products not found. Shikina, is it hard? So I also want to copy this class called Boom. I'll copy it to my terminal. So I'll type node, enter, paste it here, paste down. I'll see um once v1 v1 should be Vimia1, the first instance of Vimia. So v1 should be equals to new Vimia. Of course, new Vimia will accept some parameters. Remember, when we are so the store name will be Vimia limited. The address will be here, here, anywhere. So I've created that Vimia. So if we say v1.users, you see that is an empty array. And I want to register, so I would say Vimia.register. Sorry, not Vimia, v1.register. So register, what will I pass here? My full name, computer, the email, um, well, let's just say v@v.com, exact type, and they are going. So in fact, what I want to do is before it should only be the admin that should be able to add and remove products because um so if we want to do that, okay, we are going to do that update later on. But for now, anybody can add and remove products. If you want to do that, you want it that anytime you want to add a product, you will pass in the user ID that's trying to add or remove products. Okay, but let's leave that for now. So I'll do that. You see, Victor is registered successfully. If I try to run this code again the second time, let me try to add myself the second time. You see, it's already even showing me the error. Email is already used. So if I try that, you see, email is already used because of this line of code that I wrote here. It found a duplicate for that email. So that's why it's telling me the email is already used. If I try to register the second time with the same email. So but if I register and change the email, maybe use something else. Let's say VI. See that error doesn't come up again. See? So yeah, maybe I'll say V2. And I just want to have two accounts. Victor Peter 2. Say that I say v1.users. You see that we have two users actually. We have the first one with his own ID, full name, user type, We have the second one with ID, username, and everything. See? Then we want to be able to add products. So if we say then we want to add products. So the product name would be um zoo 400,000. You see, as soon as it's successful, you can add another product. Um, Fanta. The Fanta could be like 50,000. So Fanta is added successfully. Then if we did view one dot products, see that we have ID and product name and the costs for each product. Let me try to remove a product by its ID. I want to remove Azul. So I'll copy this. I'll come here, I'll say view one dot remove products. And then I'll pass the ID of the product I want to remove. So I'll just paste in that and press enter. You see products deleted successfully. So if I try to come back here, you see that I only have one product, which is Fanta, right? Let me try, um, okay, yeah. So now even if I try to delete a product that doesn't exist, it still tell me product deleted successfully, sure, but it's not going to affect the array, right? So the next one I want to do is, okay, view products. So if I say view one dot view products, to still return the same thing as view products, view products. Okay, view products, sorry. View products is still returns the same as product. And if I want to view one product, I can just copy this and say view one dot view one products, right? View, sorry, I didn't do that for so view one product and then I paste the ID I want to view. You see that it just returns only that particular product that I want to view. Um, so we created one very simple e-commerce app that can add a product, remove a product, view list of products, add users, register users, and the rest. Okay, let me remove this line of code. So with this, with the knowledge of what you have in class with class now, you can write and play around with different solutions, right? Or different ideas. You can play around with it. Okay. Do you guys have any question on what we've done on this on what we've done so far? Anybody that has any question? Any question? I hope you guys are there. Is there any question on what we've done so far? Well, so I know that you guys might not get everything I'm doing currently, right? You guys might not get everything, but then, okay, gospel said I should explain the loop. So which loop exactly? Which of the loop do you want me to explain again? Which is it the view one product? Is it the view one product loop, or is it the remove product loop, or is it the register user loop. Okay, you're saying anyone. So let me go to the view one products loop, which is actually the simplest chart. So this view one product loop views it iterates or loops through the list of products in the products array. Remember this products um this products array, right, is what we declared up here. See it here, products. So anytime we say this dot products, we are referring to that array up. So we say, so this is just a statement to loop through. So let me finish explaining the loop out. Answer that question, Johnson. So once as you're looking through each value in the array, there's something you're trying to do. Maybe you're trying to look for something, or you're trying to do something else, right? Like for example, what we are trying to do now is we want to remove a product. So which means when when we look through the full array, we are looking for um we are looking for an instance where the ID of the product that we have for that particular iteration is not equals to the ID that we want to delete. So once this statement is true, we remove that product that we found into the new products array, right? But now, if the product that we have in a particular iteration is the same as has the same ID as the product we want to delete, we don't want to add that product to this updated products. So it's more like saying, look through. If you find a product that you want to delete, don't add that product you want to delete to this updated products array. Just add others except that product you want to delete. Then after doing that, we now say that this dot product, which is the array of products, should be equals to the updated array of products, which is the array of product that doesn't have the product with the ID that we want to delete. Okay, so that's how we then update the products array and then tell the user products deleted successfully. So why you can't add the products as you're writing, you can actually add products as you're writing the code. Like if I want to add products here, I could just press enter and then start writing the products here. Maybe the product ID, product name, and then cost. I could do this, I could write it, but now you're creating, remember that as a developer, you're creating something that you're creating a software or a platform that other people will use. Okay, take for example, you're building a house. You now put door that is only you that can open. So when the owner of the house want to enter his house, he will call you from wherever you are and be like, please, can you come and open this house for me? I want to enter my house. When he wants to leave, he will also call you to open the door of his house for him to leave. If you're not there, you cannot open it. That's not the kind of house you would want to buy or even build as a builder. You want to build a house that once you hand over to a user, you have full control over. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why you won't want to already hard code the products you have in your head into this products array. Rather, you're building this in mind that, okay, I'm building this thing so that if I hand it over to somebody or anybody, right, the person should be able to add and remove, the person should be able to add or remove products on his own, should be able to register and maybe delete users. Maybe there might be a function or um, yeah, a method to delete users. Okay, so um that should be in place when you're building something, when you're building maybe a product for someone, you should be able to add or remove or modify, the state of that particular platform or that class or whatever you're designing for someone. I hope I have answered your question, Johnson. Okay, cool. So the only update I wanted to make was when you're adding a product, maybe when you're adding a product, there should be an owner. I say owner, or owner ID, owner ID. Then I would say maybe ID, owner ID here. The owner ID is the owner of the product, the owner that added the product. Then when you want to remove a product, you supply the ID of the product and the owner ID for the product. So here, we want to check first, these products you're trying to remove, are you the owner? Okay, so the ID, I'm taking the ID from the date, and the date, I'm using the date.now function. So this date.now function, right? Or this date.now method returns the milliseconds that has elapsed from since 1970, 1st of January 1970 till today, or till that current time you're trying to add that product. Okay, so if so now, which means if we want to remove products, we need to check. Yes, the other means to generate IDs, very plenty. So someone is asking if there is a means to generate IDs. Yes, there's a means to generate ID. There are packages to generate ID, like libraries. For example, there's one called UUID, which is used to generate a unique, universally unique ID. Then there's the other one called Nano ID. It's used to generate uh, still IDs, but the IDs have different structure from how UUID generates theirs. So you can check on NPM on how that is being done, how those IDs are being generated. So now what I want to do is before I delete, so once this is false, which means, so once this is, if this is true, it means the product is not the product we are trying to delete. But um, once this expression or comparison we are trying to do here becomes false, then it means that the product that we are having an iteration is the product we want to delete. So before deleting it, we want to write an else statement to check if the owner is the person that is trying to delete that product. We want to do that. So we'll now say else, if if this dot product dot I dot owner ID is equals to the owner ID. If that is equal, if the owner, if the product that we found that we want to delete, the owner is equals to this owner ID, then we can continue. Oh, so I'll explain this continue. Then else here again, we would want to do this. Since you're not the owner, you cannot delete it. So, or instead of deleting, this is what we would do. We would return, or we throw an error. We would throw new error. So what's the error here? You can't delete this product as you are not the owner. So yeah, for now we are not connecting to a database. Like we are not connecting to a database. Everything I'm doing is just stored on uh the stored on the PC. Like not really stored, like should I say permanently. It's stored on your RAM. So I'm just doing this to explain how classes work, right? And I'm trying to use these products to explain it. So let's do this. Let me copy this again and paste. Copy this. So let me add two users. First, let me create an instance. So I'll say, uh, you guys should ask your question on the chat section or instance one. Well, I'll just call this v1. V1 should be equals to new v what? New linear with the linear limited. Here and there, so v1 dot register. Register would be, so register would accept what's register would accept email, full name, email, and user type. Full name, Victor, email, v@v.com. User type, uh, maybe admin, I'll say v2, Victor 2. I've registered two users, right? The next thing I want to do is I want to add products. So I want Victor to add products. So I'll say, first I want to know the users that I have, v1 dot users. So I want Victor to add products. So I'll copy his ID and then say v1 dot add products. What's the argument our products needs? So our product needs product name. So product name is Wi-Fi. The cost 15,000. The owner ID, which is the person that is adding it, will be that owner. So which means Victor is the one that added that product. Wi-Fi added successfully. Now, let me try to use, let's this other Victor try to delete that same ID. So I'll copy his own. I'll come here, I'll say v1 dot delete product. Okay, first let's see the product. v1 dot products. So you see that we have these products. So let me try to delete v1 dot remove product. The remove product accept an ID, which is the product ID and the owner ID. So first, I'll just put command space, paste the owner ID, which is the owner that did not add this product. You understand? Then I'll copy this ID and then I'll paste it as the product ID. You see? Now, remember that the owner of this product is this one that ends it in 4928. Let's come back here. It's 4928 that, which is this Victor that added the product. Remember when they added that product? They added it. But then the other user that ends at 1602, is the one trying to delete the product. So the product's ID is the one we pass here. The ID of the person that is trying to delete it is the one we are passing here, which is a 1602. So now, once you do that, to tell you that you can't delete this product because you are not the owner. You're not the one that added it. But so now, what if we try deleting the same product with the original owner? You only copy the product ID I paste here. Then the original owner is this person, is that person. Now paste it there, press enter. You see products deleted successfully. Now if we say u1.products, you now see that that product was deleted successfully, right? Okay, so um we've been able to add a form of control here where when you add the owner ID, we check if the owner is the one that's trying to delete the product. If you're the owner, the product is being deleted. If not, it's not deleted, and the rest. Is there any question? Do you guys have any question? You can ask it on the chat section. Any question? So, so in the absence of any question, I think we are going to stop here on the classes. Okay, what if when creating a product, you want to attach the owner's ID to the product automatically? Okay, or if you want to do that, then you could create a token that maybe, or you can, no, see, either ways you need to add the owner ID, except if we're writing like an actual back end. Then there would be a way to maybe know a user that is trying to add a product or not. But for now, for now, the only way to know a user is actually to add the ID, the owner ID. When you're trying to maybe add a product or any of those things, so you need to add the owner ID. Okay. Once we start writing backend, you'll see how we can create tokens and um, owners of particular data can then be allowed to make modifications to the database if their token match the token that was, or if the ID in their token match the ID for the user that created a particular record. Okay. Is there any other question? So no other question, right? No other question. So let's see. So I'm done with today's class, right? What I just want to go through. So this class should end by around 2:30. What I want to do now is to talk about um callback here. Okay. Yeah, Matilda, I've seen what you said. I'll push it. What we are going to talk about now is that callback here we wanted to do in the last class. So remember something we wrote. Let's say we have two promises. Promise one. Promise one is equals to new promise. So our normal resolve and reject. Then we'll say, I like to always use that set timeout. So uh, I'll say set, timeout. Set, 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 Set time out and it should resolve to promise one executed successfully. And all right, the second promise is called promise two. And I'll just simply copy this. Set timeouts. Maybe let's see. Let me make this one actually take more time. Maybe 3 seconds. Why this one takes 2 seconds? So this one is going to execute first before this one. Right? So promise two executed. Yeah, okay. This is from the last class. Remember that someone asked the question, Matilda asked the question of what is callback hell, right? And then I want to explain how callback hell or something they call the pyramid of doom, or but it's mainly known as callback hell. How callback hell actually is being also yeah being written, right? So look at this. We have this on a normal. If you want to consume this promise, you want to write something like promise one dot then, or because it's then, because it's going to resolve. Normally, we want to say result, and then also the log result. And we want to do exactly the same thing for promise two, right? Let's say promise two, the result, and then you log it out. Now, this is what is going to happen. Let's clear. Let's clear this and come up here. This is what is going to happen when you do this. Node script.js. Promise two executed first before promise one. So it's like, so now it's looking like there is no control, right? In your program. You maybe now, let's say for example, you wanted promise two to wait. Let promise one execute first before promise two executes. But at this point, you're trying to do it, but it's not working that way. Promise two is being executed first because promise two is the one that resolves first before promise one. Right? Now, if you want to make it that it should resolve in sequence, this is what you will then do. In this your then function for premise one, you will now come and copy premise two and put inside. Maybe you call this results two. Now, if you clear this and then you come and try to execute the function again or the code again, okay, promise one is executed and then promise two is executed. Now, the reason why both of them brings together is promise two was already executed, but it was waiting for promise one to execute. And then before it will then display its result. Okay, so if you want a control, if you want a flow of control, so now you see promise one doesn't block promise two from executing, but promise two won't show its result first until after promise one has finished executing, right? And we do not need to now wait for another minute for promise two to start executing, another how many seconds for promise two. We do not need to wait for 2 seconds for promise two to execute. Promise two, 2 seconds elapsed already as promise one was still executing, but promise one had 3 seconds. So promise two result was kept somewhere. Promise one executed, and then promise two results just came in without waiting for another 2 minutes before it executed. So this form of having the like this promise here, and then you have another promise inside this promise, like consuming or using the promise, like using a promise inside another promise. This is what is referred to as the callback hell. Because what if you have three promises? You write promise one, you have promise two, then you now come and write promise three here, promise three inside here. You write promise three, maybe inside the promise three, you have promise four, just for control of flow on your code. This is going to be very difficult to read and follow. So instead of having this kind of structure, what you would want to rather do is have something like this. Maybe you have a function, an async function, and you say execute promise. Execute promise. This one is going to have, so you do something like promise one, or let's say P1 should be equals to await promise one. Then const P2 should be equals to await promise two. Then console.log P1, console.log P2. So if you do that, oh, okay, I didn't call execute promise, sorry. So if you call that, you'll see that promise one executes first and is logged out first. Promise two is then logged out first. Second. Even if you did like this, to still give you the same result. Exactly the same result. Now, writing or consuming your promise or consuming your promises this way or consuming your promises this way, which one is clearer, right? This one is more clearer and more easy to understand when writing it than writing this kind of a thing. Now, this one is simple. What if after when you write promise one, then instead of writing console.log result, you now have a long list of maybe statements before you now consume promise two, right? It will make it very hard for people to read what you're trying to do. But writing it this way, right, makes it easy. Let's have promise one. You write whatever I want to write. You can call promise two later on, do whatever I want to do, and the rest. And everything goes in a uniform manner instead of things happening that you can't control. Does it make sense to you guys? Does it make sense to you guys? Yeah, so to have that control, right? To have that control of flow, and to make your code easily understood or easily or readable, right? You will want to not write your code this way by nesting promises, right? Or nesting your doable functions. Rather, you want to write it this way, having them on its own independent line and they are not nested into each other. Is there any question? Is there any question? No question, right? So basically, I know this what I explain here might actually be difficult to grasp now, right? If you rewatch this video, you will understand what I'm explaining more and more, especially if you watch the video, you pause it, you try what I'm doing, and then you pause again, you try explaining, or you try writing what I did, and then see how it executes on your own end. Then from there, you'll be able to learn a whole lot. Is that okay? So in the absence of any questions for today, I think we can actually call it a day, right? And then in the next class, um, we are going to be taking, just give me a brief moment. Um, let's see. Okay, so in the next class, we are going to still talk about object-oriented programming, right? We still talk about it. We are going to see some concepts like encapsulation, uh, polymorphism. In fact, we've done most of them here, but it's just that I didn't give them those names. For example, instantiating a class with multiple, with properties, right? So you're making that class exist in different forms, right? Or objects of that class exist in different forms. That's a form of polymorphism. Then encapsulation is not allowing every detail of your execution to show outside the code, right? So we'll see that, and then we would also talk. So that will be for next week, Monday. We'll talk about classes more in depth, and then next week, Thursday, we'll talk about introduction to RESTful APIs. So we'll talk about what APIs are, and then we are going to we are going to also look at installing Postman and uh, consuming a weather API, or consuming an API. It might not be a weather API, right? So that's what we are going to do in the next class. So that will be all for now. Thank you for coming out for today's class, and enjoy.